Hey, what is going on, guys? It is Drew here. Today we're going to be checking out every single Warhammer 40k faction explained part 2 by Bricky. Now, we checked out part 1 earlier this week, like a couple days ago. I'm going to leave like a little card on screen if you guys want to check out that one before watching this one. If not, that's fine. But a few things I want to say is, hey, make sure to like and subscribe because I'm down to react to more Warhammer content. And what I wanted to know is which one should I watch next? Because I know these are like the main two people watch from him. But where should I go from here? I would like to see just your guys' recommendations for Warhammer content in the comments down below. Because it honestly, from what I've seen in part 1, it seems pretty cool. And also, if you do want to see more Warhammer content from me, please do make sure to like and subscribe. It lets me know that you guys want more. And hey, support the Patreon if you want to down below. And without further ado, let's get into it.
Hey all, this is part 2 in a two-part series on the Warhammer races. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, we do the Imperium of Man. You can check that out in the description, and I highly recommend you watch that to get context for this episode. If you already have, go ahead and keep on watching. So after an entire episode of nothing but humans, we can now talk about chaos, which involves humans again, but a little bit less. We also got demons and shit.
I just felt someone grab my ass.
Hey, yo. Loki, sometimes it felt like some of those people from the last ones were not humans.
What? Like hard, Nick.
So, as I've mentioned many times before, we've discussed the warp, the immaterium, the hellish landscape, the purgatory dimension realm between the material realm of our existence. Now, in the warp, it's terrifying, horrible. There are demons everywhere. Things are crazy. All your minds and thoughts and emotions get projected there. It is both formless and empty. It is vast and tiny. It obeys the laws of time and physics while simultaneously does absolutely nothing of the sort. It is a hodgepodge,
it's just everyone's thoughts and
of
stuff
just unknowable, eldritch, horrifying shit. And there are 4 gods that permeate in chaos and the warp. These are the 4 major chaos gods.
They look badass,
and if we wish to learn about chaos, we need to learn about each and every single one of these chaos gods. First up, we have Khorne, and he is the easiest. Khorne is your classic Satan. He is all about anger, murder, fighting, blood, guts, death. You ever heard the term,
all that good stuff?
Blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne? That's Khorne. The whole idea is that he is all about the fury and strength of battle. He doesn't care where blood comes from so long as blood is flowing. He wants to fight and murder and carnage and slaughter and death.
Essentially, he's a menace to society.
Khorne. Very simple to understand. Next up, you have Tzeentch, and Tzeentch is the god of change. However, the god of change, it's permeates in so many different other ways. He's the most eldritch of all the demon gods. He has this weird way to always be plucking at the strings of the universe. He's always conniving, scheming, and doing his best to cause as much little bullshit as he can. Tzeentch is unknowable. Everything that makes sense, he will and won't do. Every future and setting.
Can we just say this dude looks creepy, dude? All these little tentacles and
every type of destiny or fate is all foretold and also changeable.
He reminds me of a JJK character, but just like
completely random. He knows what everything is going to happen, and also that none of it's going to happen. You would ask Tzeentch a question. That question leads to 3 more questions, and those questions lead to the heat death of the universe, which asks 4 answers to those questions. And then he thinks to himself, what are questions even really? And are you even asking the questions, or are you simply giving paths to answers and other horse shit? Tzeentch is just, I'm gonna fuck with stuff. He is yes and he is no. He is the understanding and he is complexity. He is unknowable.
I respect it, honestly.
That's what the god of change is about. Very bizarre. And he likes birds a lot. I don't know
birds?
why. Next up, we got Papa Nurgle. Papa Nurgle, he loves you for who you are. Probably not. He will murder you just the same. But Papa Nurgle is about rot, pestilence, death, and decay.
Oh boy, it looked like he got a few pounds on him.
Everything. Him and Tzeentch do not like each other very much because where Tzeentch represents change and adjustment, Nurgle represents stagnation and death. He is all about asthma and pestilence and large bloat and pus and organs and people just being sedentary.
So he's basically just low-key disgusting.
Sloth. He has the idea that everything will rot and decay and die. Nothing is certain besides decay and death. all of us will end up the same way.
That's kind of true.
Broken down through just sheer never-ending decomposition.
That
So
is-
the
that
joke
is kind of
Nurgle
true.
always loves you is generally because of that, because we all end up the same. We all rot and we all die and wither. That's Nurgle, and he's got a general theme of course, pestilence and different kinds of diseases and sickness and things of that nature. That's generally Nurgle. He's pretty easy to understand as well, and he chunk. Finally,
Hyuki
we
and
have
chunky.
the youngest of the Chaos Gods, and that is Slaanesh.
We
also
blurring
known
stuff
as
out?
the Prince of Pleasure, or the God of Unspeakable Excess. Slaanesh
Okay.
is generally referred to with sex, but it's not only sex. It's just that's a good avenue if you want to make stuff. Slaanesh is just the idea of the senses of the body being cranked to not just 11, but more like 17. So we'll
Damn.
discuss Slaanesh a little bit more when we talk about the Eldar, because they done fucked up. But he.
Valorant.
However, is mainly about just the excess of emotions, and therefore
Gotcha.
sex is generally a large part of it. However, it's mostly pain and torture.
Oh.
Lots of pain, torture, but sometimes
Oh.
sexually related or drug related. Lots of drugs.
Yeah.
Lots of drugs. Slaanesh gets off on everything. Extremes in happiness, extremes in sadness,
So she's like
extremes
the-
in pain and sadism.
The zesty
and
emotion type?
masochism, and of course that goes along with the sex part of it as well. It's generally referred to with sex because of the color scheme, very purple, lots of exposed genitalia. A lot of their models have like exposed nipples and stuff.
Gotcha.
And that is generally the theme you go for from a physical side, but it really embodies everything, mainly pain and also the excessive amounts of emotion. So when it comes down to it, you'll find a lot of
Fair
them
enough.
have things like spikes or whips or any kind of BDSM style gear because it is unspeakable excess, the Prince of Pleasure, everything in excess to the point where it is just sheer frightening. That
So
is
yeah,
Slaanesh
this god
in a
is just
nutshell.
freaky.
A little bit bizarre and a little hard to describe sometimes, but as we talk more about the Dark Eldar layer in this video, you'll understand it far
To
better.
each their
and
own,
far
you know
more
what I'm
than you
saying?
want to. Now you might be thinking, why would anyone ever want to join Chaos? They all look horrifying,
Yeah.
screwed up, and just
Good-
frightening
good
things,
point.
right? Well, the thing is that, of course, one, your mind is put into the warp and the immaterium, so you can be easily swayed by chaos demons when they get into your head, especially if you're a psychic.
Okay, maybe I got the warp wrong. And I thought that was everyone's thoughts all together. So the warp just has bad stuff there, but people's minds are into it. Is what I'm getting from that last
Sometimes
sentence.
regiments of the less
I thought it was like a combination of every thought, like in a vicinity, you know, something like that. Like and let's be real, bro. As society, if everybody's thoughts were all together, like it would probably be some pretty messed up stuff in there, you know. So that's kind of what I thought it
mentally
was.
strong people, whether they be civilians or say low-level guardsmen or conscripts, can be easily swayed by this and become chaos cultists and stuff, and they serve their dark gods and whatever god they personally prefer. However, and this might seem strange, chaos in their own right isn't necessarily evil. See, the warp is
Okay.
every manifestation of emotion and being, every soul, everything of existence. This includes all the good things. All the different chaos
maybe it
gods
is.
have another side to their corn.
That.
Corn might be death, murder, slaughter, slaughter, but
Yeah.
he's also got this weird sense of survival of the fittest, trial by combat, and honor. Corn will never lie to you. Corn will never stab you in the back. Corn isn't about conniving and scheming.
So
Corn
they-
is
so they
about
have some
straight
good
up
to them.
Mono e mono, you versus me, get in the ring, we're gonna murder each other
Okay, Corn's just literally a badass.
hard
Like,
right now. It may not be a good thing at the end of the day, but it is that other
Yeah.
side of the coin.
'Cause
Him
who's
and
beating
Zeech
that?
generally don't get along because Zeech is that conniving schemer, but he's also about the idea of hope. Where there is change for your predicament. There is change for your problem.
This is the last guy who
Hope
I
of the
think is about
galaxy,
hope.
The ability to bend the world to your will. The idea that your fate is not set in stone, but in reality that you control your own destiny and control whatever you want. The change your
Right.
own ways.
Okay, that actually makes
That
sense.
is Zeech. And of course, Zeech and Nurgle hate each other because while Nurgle does represent stagnation, death, and decay, he also represents finality and
Finality.
ending. The fact that you can be mentally at peace knowing that you will end and how you will end. Fear of the unknown, fear
Okay.
of change is not present with Nurgle. With Nurgle,
yeah, those two kind of go like polar opposite, right? Like some people think everything goes the way it's supposed to go, and others think it's all random. Honestly, I'm really 50-50 on that. What do you guys think? Do you think everything's planned out, or do you think everything just happens at a random?
Nurgle, everything will
I'm
rot
50-50
and
because
die,
I think
and that
it's
provides that
I don't know.
finality, that ability that this is over.
I think it's
We
planned
are
out to a
all
degree,
the
but I think
same,
we have our own
and
choices.
we will all end the same. We know the meaning of life. The meaning of life is to live and die and rot. And with that, it brings peace of mind. Slaanesh is a lot more simple. While they are the excess of emotion, they are also the representation of emotion. Slaanesh embodies happiness.
So good and bad.
Slaanesh embodies excitement and joy and pleasure, not only in the sense of the physical, you know. Slaanesh embodies
My bad.
happiness.
I just
Slaanesh embodies
cleaned my
excitement,
camera. I noticed it was looking a
joy,
little rough.
and pleasure, not only in the sense of the physical, you know, bam style of pleasure, but also everything else like food and drink and air on your cheek and sunlight, the feeling, emotion and feeling. All of that is also represented with Slaanesh.
Right.
So you have to ask, why are they always represented as super evil skulls and spikes on everything and want to murder everybody?
I don't know.
really got an answer for you on that one. My assumption is that because mentally humans may think worse thoughts, even if we don't act on them, and therefore they're projected in the warp more. That one's a little bit weird. I don't know. This is me spitballing right now, but I don't know. You need a super bad guy. You already got the Imperium of Man. You need somebody to be a little bit worse than them. So you got demons. Honestly, who cares? I just want to buy like a bird magician. Look at him. So cool.
Looks pretty cool.
So combining all this together on the tabletop, Chaos Demons are generally very melee based. They run in, go really hard. You have lots of summoning and conjuring, tons of spells. Generally a little bit frail, but they have
we're talking about the
special saves to
we're
make
talking
it a
about the
little
faction
stronger.
again.
You've got giant demons and smaller demons. You got hordes of little boys and tons of big guys. Demons are as they seem. Demons. Nurgle is slow. Khorne is super scary in melee. You've got Tzeentch, who are
you
far
can be
more
like their
into psychers
underlings.
and spellcasting, and then Slaanesh, who is all melee, really fast, but
Gotcha.
squishy, but in lots of hordes of tons of melee and pain damage.
That's pretty
of
dope.
course. So overall, the demons are a huge part of 40k
That is dope.
and a massive threat to almost every single faction, with the exception of a couple. However, the big part about demons is also transferred into the other 9 Primarchs we didn't talk about, which are the Chaos Space Marines.
Chaos. Those things look vile, dude.
Welcome to JJ's.
What? Welcome to JJ's.
All of his boys, all of them in the Primarchs, they have all also become Chaos Boys, and they all have their own special Chaos Legions, specializing in so many different things, just like the Adeptus Astartes, the Angels of Death, the regular Space Marines. Chaos Space Marines aren't a whole lot different than the regular Space Marines. They have the same armor, generally the same training and toughness. They just specialize in different kinds of things. And also a lot of the Primarchs have ascended into greater demons. They're demon Primarchs at this point. Gigantic, horrifying man-demon hybrids.
I like the
that
scythe,
are
though.
Pretty awesome, if I'm going to be honest. They look really
Shout out
cool.
Ruby.
But them and their associated legions that they are a part of are all kind of going out there and causing a large ruckus for everyone else. Considering the raw strength and firepower of a legion of Space Marines, imagine that entire legion just converting to chaos and immediately fighting you. It's generally pretty horrifying. There's a lot of them, so I gotta write them down. But you've got the Emperor's Children with Primarch Fulgrim, loyal to Slaanesh. These people, they are some messed up people.
Yeah.
They're just sensory overload. Tons of drugs, tons of torture.
Damn, looking straight out of Resident Evil right there.
Right now, and oh god, I am terrified to see what that man looks like, at least on the tabletop, because the Emperor's Children are not good people. You got the Iron Warriors, which are kind of like opposite of the Imperial Fists, with Primarch
looks less creepy than the
Kurama,
other one.
his name. They're Chaos Undivided. They just kind of serve chaos in a general aspect instead of choosing one of the 4. But the Iron Warriors are big on the siege and fortification, and they're basically entirely against the Imperial Fists and are a major rival. Perturabo, I believe, is also still alive, and I'm also very interested to see what he looks like, because Demon Primarchs are badass.
So
You've got the Night Lords with Primarch Conrad Kurz.
When he's saying he was excited to see what they look like, are the pictures he's showing not them?
Conrad Kurz is dead, which is good because he's a sick fuck. But the Night Lords are generally about terrorizing people and terrorism. They're generally about fear, and rightly so. You've got the World Eaters with Primarch Angron.
Oh, that is a cold name, World Eater.
Also excited to see. Angron If you think
my-
you've known an angry person, Angron is the angriest son of a bitch
Angron
you will
is
ever
angry.
know. Angron removed parts of his brain that didn't make him angry, so he could be angrier.
What?
Angron, fucker's mad.
Bro,
You've got a Death Guard with Primarch.
the fact that he just had
Mortarion.
skulls
They actually have
lined
their
up all
own
over him.
special codex and their own major army on
Okay.
tabletop. Mortarion himself is actually one of the models, and look at him. Look at him. It's so cool looking. Of course, Nurgle based, obviously.
Yeah.
So very slow, but very tanky. You've got the Word Bearers with Primarch Lorgar. Lorgar is, I believe, still alive. I don't know what's up with him at the current moment, but the Word Bearers are generally the people who caused all the major problems in the beginning.
Right.
At least I blame them for it. They're little assholes. You got the Black Legion with Primarch Horus. Get fucked, nerd. You've got the Alpha Legion with Primarch Alfarius Omegon. Chaos, I think. And then finally, you've got the Thousand Sons with Primarch Magnus the Nerd. Thousand Sons also have their
Nerd?
own book, just like the Death Guard. Magnus is also a tabletop model. He looks super cool.
He
as
does.
you can tell. And they're all super heavily psyker. And
I haven't even played the damn
Egyptian.
game, and I'm
Look
like,
pretty
oh,
neat.
maybe I'm
But
gonna buy
overall,
that.
with all of these Chaos Space Marine factions, you can play as
By the way,
all
alright,
different ones.
I might
but the
run some
main ones
Warhammer
that
on
you can
Twitch,
really
so
look at are standard
follow, I guess.
Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, as well as the Death Guard and Thousand Sons, as they are the most fleshed out, especially in the
Yeah.
tabletop at least. See this right here? This is a really good way to describe the Chaos Space Marines. What the thick-headed fools with their broken corpse of an emperor fail to understand is that not only can they never defeat us, but they cannot hide or flee or shield themselves from the triumph of chaos. They are finite and we are unbound, undivided.
Sounding
They
like
must
Bill
not
Cipher,
err,
bro.
or they shall fall to heresy. All who fall join our cause. Every imperial
Jeez.
fool who dares to open his eyes is a willing recruit. They strive merely to hold back our fury and might, and it consumes them. Thus, you can see chaos is inevitable. We lurk not only beyond their grasp and at their gates, we lurk within the darkness of their souls,
God
on the
damn.
tip of their tongues, in their tortured dreams. We are them, but free
Oh
from
my
the shackles
gosh,
of
dude.
ignorance. We are them, grown strong,
Evolved.
We are
Damn.
them, but so much more. As hard,
Dude, he was literally sounding like Bill Cipher
the
right there.
saddest part is they're mostly right. Chaos is basically unkillable. You could probably get rid of Space Marines a decent amount, the Chaos Space Marines that is, but
Right.
every soul that dies goes to the warp. Every Chaos
Oh, wow, I
soul
didn't know that.
will end up back in the warp. And depending on how hard you killed them, they will come back at some point.
Oh, wow.
Every demon you banish will return
At some point.
Chaos is
Interesting.
unstoppable. The warp is unending. And while
So it's
maybe
just a
there is
freaking
at some
cycle.
point some way to stop them somehow, the resources to do so, the requirements to do so, are so far beyond the reaches of
Right.
man and the other races at the current moment that really it's just an unstoppable force that just keeps on coming and is just barely being slowed. Chaos is by far the biggest threat. They are without
Gotcha.
number, their legions are everywhere, and yeah, they're pretty scary. So, I promise, we're done with humans now. Let's talk about some Xenos.
Xenos, the Eldar.
So let's talk about
Shit,
the
these weapons are
Eldar,
cool.
also known as the Eldari, which are a
Eldari.
super hyper-specialized and very technologically advanced race of
I can
elf
see
people.
that.
They
The
were
fits
as
and the
well
weapons are just looking
responsible for
interesting.
the creation of Slanesh, the newest demon god. How'd they do that?
How? Yeah.
Debauchery on a world-ending scale. So back in the day, it was just
Ew.
Khorne, Tzeentch, and Nurgle. And the Eldar are very, very ancient. Millions of years. These Eldar,
Celeste just
however,
came
have a bit of
out
a
of nowhere.
sensory problem. You know, every kind of pain or feeling that you have is a little bit amplified compared to the normal. However, with Eldar, as their race advanced so excessively, and they became so self-reliant, and everything became so easy, there was no requirement
Oh, they
for
were just
food
a-
production
they were just a
anymore.
higher
There was no
life form.
shortages. Everything was basically done. Everyone was so comfortable, and that comfort breeded this weird sedation, and that sedation breeded the requirement for more and more debauchery.
Of debauchery.
Debauchery!
Debauchery.
When everything you have can be so easily acquired, you will end up down this road of pure debauchery. All of the senses the Eldar had that were so powerful, things like feeling, happiness, sadness, and just evil and good, all needed to be satisfied and satiated. And the desire to satiate these senses
I thought he was gonna say like they got depressed, low-key, because like when life's going easy, bro, you feel like you need a challenge. But now they were just
grew
like
more and more with
they just wanted to do fucked up shit.
debauchery. It started off with things like sex and drugs becoming so much more rampant because these are the first things you generally turn to when requirements for living are so easily accessible. It would get to the point that made Sander
Really?
Cohen in BioShock look sane. All right, this is the kind of debauchery it led to. It was constantly satisfying and satiating these sexual and sadistic or masochistic fantasies that only elevated and elevated. And this was species-wide. People started going down darker, more depraved, and more violent paths as time went on. However, some people...
Okay, I thought they were gonna get like kind of depressed and go for a new goal, cause like that's low-key how I do it whenever I like reach something I wanted to do. I just put up a higher standard, but they really did everything, so they just went straight to the bad stuff.
didn't entirely take to that. Some of the Eldar were looking at this depraved species that they had become and said, no thanks for me, dog, I'm good. And they bailed. These are the Craft World Eldar. They left on these giant continent-sized starships called Craft Worlds. They believed in learning the old ways of the Eldar and pushing away from this depravity and debauchery and going back to their main roots. And so they would segment themselves on these giant craft worlds far in the outer reaches of space. They even had this thing called the Webway. Remember what we mentioned about warp travel with the Imperium? Well, the Eldar had something way safer called a Webway. And the Eldar
so there's different ways to travel through it.
Pocket dimension kind of thing. And in that pocket dimension, there were also more horrible, depraved groups and clans that would spend their time in there. And
really?
If you imagine the debauchery was bad already, these were debauchery X10. So all of this continued, and it bloated until Slaanesh just
Oh, that actually kind of makes sense, being what her like you know, what she represents.
Thought processes, I suppose. All of this in such a condensed space. Don't forget, this is all being shot, all their souls as well, into the warp.
Yeah.
All this depravity right into the warp. So
did they have so much of those feelings that it just like, boom, there's a god of it now?
What happened?
Type of thing?
Boom. Slaanesh was birthed and killed off 90% of the entire Eldar population. Untold trillions, trillions had their souls ripped from their bodies and their actual fleshy bodies devoured by Slaanesh demons. The entirety
How did the other
of the
10%
Eldar race was eaten alive and their souls consumed to the Prince of
I thought he
Pleasure.
said 90%. I was like, what?
All of them got fucked up. It was so bad that it literally ripped a warp hole into the fabric of the materium called the Eye of Terror. That's literally this like quasi horrifying gateway portal from the materium and the immaterium right next to Cadia.
Hey, this man's always crying about Cadia.
So this
what happened?
Slaanesh, also known as She Who Thirsts by the Eldar, slaughtered the entire population except for a couple. Those in the craft worlds were actually not affected by this as they were so far in the reaches of the galaxy. That crazy crack, that birth of Slaanesh only affected the ones in the center. So these craft world Eldar were able to escape, but Slaanesh got their sights on them. Every time an Eldar will die, their soul doesn't just pass into the warp naturally. It goes straight to Slaanesh, craft world or not. What about those people in the Webway? Well,
I guarantee you that whole species is fear and death.
Imagine that giant birth happening, but they were only able to just barely get a grasp onto you. Slaanesh was just barely able to hold on. These people are the Dark Eldar, also known as the Drukhari. The Eldar population right now is so massively small. It is minuscule compared to any of the other most of the other populations in the universe. The Eldar are consistently having issues trying to get their population up because as their souls are constantly being hungered by from Slaanesh, they realize their entire species is doomed.
Damn.
And they understand it very well. Since the time of the fall,
That's
our
terrifying.
race has been haunted by what we, in our reckless pursuit of hedonistic indulgence, gave birth to.
Yep.
Though our dreams once overturned worlds and quenched suns, we are now but fitful shadows clinging to the edge of existence. All the stars
The thing
in
is,
the
it's
sky
low-key
cannot
their
blot
fault.
out the hateful glare
So-
of the red moon's eye. The birthing
Can't even be
place
mad
of
at
the
it.
great enemy pulses with all the malice of a demon that is dreaming, casting its shadow over all we have ever done and all we ever shall. Every
Wow.
twisted strand of fate and casting of the runes leads me to this time, to this place, and it is clear that the final battle awaits me at the ancient Crone worlds. A conflict the
low-key
likes
fucked
of
up,
which
though.
has not been seen since the Monkai warred amongst themselves and their corpse of a seer fell to
Jeez.
its traitorous son. Is coming, and all my
References?
steps lead towards it, no matter that I walk other paths. I see the stars stained red with the blood of the Monkai, and though their wars do not concern me, I would gladly let them destroy one another.
Wow.
I know that to avoid this fight is to condemn my race to inevitable doom, and though all I see is darkness, I know that I will not flinch from my destiny.
Fair. They really just accepted that shit. And of course I get an ad. Shout out Sonic though.
Having a good time.
Craft World
The first
Eldar.
playable race we have for the Eldar are the
Oh,
Craft
the
World
other ones aren't
Eldar,
even playable.
living in those Craft World starships I mentioned earlier, and each of them have their own kind of Craft World, almost like a Space Marine Legion. Each Craft World is in itself
Ooh.
its own special kind of group.
The
And
mask
Eldar
low-key looks like
themselves
Iron
are
Man, but
very
more advanced.
Fast and rely a lot on trickery. They are squishy, a bit weak, but they're very in tune as psychers. Tons of psychers across the entire Eldar population,
They got
and
that
their
mental.
weaponry and abilities are fast and extremely hard hitting, but of course rather fragile. Understanding an Eldar's brain is an exercise in futility.
Are their heads actually
They
cone-shaped?
are all over the place in confusion.
That would be hilarious.
And trickery on a whole galactic scale. They fight weird, they think weirder, and Eldar, in their own right, really rely on this to keep their species alive. They need
Interesting.
to think about deception and the strangeness of what they do if they truly want to not be immediately murdered and slaughtered wholesale thanks to their entirely small population. However, I
Right.
must say that it seems like their population is getting slightly better. These craft worlds hold millions
So
upon millions of people.
they really have
And
to have
as
a
they
out of
continually,
frickin'
reproduce
out of the box
and
thinking
have their
style.
craft worlds expand, losing a few people in battle, while hurts a lot, they aren't really losing what's extremely precious to them. It's not like every single death means the death of their species. It seems like they're kind of on the upturn a little bit. They're still a doomed race being sucked into Slaanesh every time someone dies, but
Right.
they are definitely doing a little bit better than they were before. Eldar
Gotcha.
are fast, cunning, and what they don't make up for in tankiness, they make up for in extremely advanced weaponry. They also call
Ah.
humans Monkai, which is something I mentioned
Monkai?
earlier. That is a derogatory slur for humans in the Warhammer world. Why?
I just want to say I'm sorry for my complete lapse in judgment. Oh wait, actually I'm fine because it's a human. It's one for humans. I'm human.
Is it called
I live
Monkai?
another day.
Well, it's
Twitter,
because
you can't get me.
In your game, call people monkeys.
Oh, that's what that's meant to be.
On the tabletop, exactly what I said. Not very tanky, generally
Monkai,
pretty squishy,
monkey,
hit like
I guess.
trucks and move at Mach 5. Fast, hit hard, die fast. Exactly how it sounds.
I was
They've been
literally
good
thinking,
for a very long
Bonkai?
time too. We bring only death and leave
Oh.
only carry on. It is a message even a human can understand. Eldar. So,
Wow, they really don't
Drukhari.
not like humans.
Let's talk about the Dark Eldar.
What did I do?
On today's episode,
Drukhari.
how fucked up is
Here's my
fucked
name,
up.
Drew.
That's fucked up.
So
Subscribe
those
to Drew
people I
Sinju.
mentioned in the webway, in the super deranged cults and the depraved people of the Eldar, in the webway, they didn't quite get a hold onto them. So that like has them, but it has them on like by the pinky finger. And they're slowly being consumed by Slaanesh, but they found out they can stave her off
How?
by doing Slaanesh things. The Dark Eldar are by far the worst.
So they just gotta
most
get to
horrifying,
clapping cheeks.
disgusting, depraved, and brutal race in all of Warhammer 40k.
Really?
These are entirely a group of people whose full purpose to save their species from extinction, to go into planets, raid them, and take as many slaves as they possibly can to torture them for 1, 5, 10, 20, a million years.
Wow.
Because that torture will keep them from dying. They look very
Right.
BDSM style too. They definitely have a lot more spiky bits and they have a lot more of that kind of leathery
Damn,
black look
that is
to them.
a
But
that's
let's
sad existence.
example. Let's say you are an upstanding Imperial citizen living life on a regular planet. You get invaded by the Necrons.
Oh.
The Necrons will shoot you with a deatomizer, and you will be destroyed in a millisecond.
Disintegrated.
And
Gone.
that's it. Not the worst way to go.
Not
You
the
are
worst
invaded
way.
by Chaos Marines or something. You take a bolter shot to the head or a chain sword across your stomach, and you get cut in half. Painful, but not the worst. The Orks arrive.
not
They
too
beat
bad.
you to death.
Oh.
Hurts, but you know, whatever. Tyranids, they eat you alive. It's pretty rough.
Yeah.
The
Might not
Dark
want to go out
Eldar.
that way.
The Dark Eldar. This is going to get a little graphic. I apologize. You pray you die. You don't. You are instead taken as a human slave. Your life will be endless work and agony, 24/7. They will make sure you can't not die, as your pain satisfies them.
24/7?
They will hook you up to all manner of torture devices. They will inject pain-based like stimuli drugs directly into your nervous
You'd have to let us
system.
sleep
They
though,
will
right?
slowly run razor blades across your skin. They will
Damn.
fillet you and just pull out your teeth and your
Damn.
fingernails one
Damn.
by one. They will remove your appendages and your skin and wait for it to grow back so they can do it again.
Oh, yeah.
They
No,
will
I'm not-
murder and torture and use the R word, it rhymes with grape, your entire family in front of you and do the exact same thing to them. You yourself will also
Yeah, bro. Yeah, bro. I ain't trying to pull up to that, bro.
be rhymes with grape anywhere and everywhere possible. And this will occur for 20 years until you are no longer satisfying to them. And then you will
Wow.
be contorted, crushed, and twisted into
Wow.
some form of trophy.
Trophy.
Fleshy trophy, or a ring, or a couch, or a TV stand.
A couch
or
is
perhaps
nuts.
a wonderful hat. While you are, of course, still alive and breathing. And you will become a moaning, fleshy trophy for eternity.
That is terrible.
And that is what happens when you are taken by the Dark Eldar. They are the most depraved, most horrifying race in
See what you
all
mean
of
now.
40K.
Didn't believe
They
you
look
at
the part,
first, but
and they do
definitely
it
do now.
so they all don't die. They are literally forced to do this because if they don't, Slaanesha's grip will get harder and they will have their souls pulled away. So long as they keep doing this, Slaanesha's like, "You're doing good, man. You're doing solid."
So
You
Slaanesh is
keep
really
that
the real
shit
villain.
up, you elf-eared bastards. That's the Dark Eldar. That's the Drukhari. They're
That's fucked up.
horrible. On the tabletop, they're actually kind of like Eldar, but more extreme. They are even squishier than the Eldar, but they
squishier.
hit generally even harder.
Wow.
Fast attacks, skirmishers, really quick, speedy, like get around them, do a lot of damage, get away kind of stuff. That's
Gotcha.
most of the Dark Eldar. Look up the definition of grim dark in a dictionary. You'll find a picture of the Dark Eldar. And Sev from Republic Commando. A
Aw.
quote from Mr. Vecht. "We are the lords of despair, masters of terror. Dread and agony are our meat and wine, and they are plentiful indeed."
Straight villains. Straight villains.
Dark Eldar. Let's talk about the Harlequins.
Harlequins.
Clowns.
Clowns.
What's the matter?
The Jesters.
Don't you want to have some fun?
Yeah, they
With
look
the
like
YouTube
clowns.
Music app, you can
YouTube
blend
Music.
up to 30
Bizarre race of Eldar. They're demonic clown performers. They're like
Right.
a weird mix of Sander Cohen from BioShock and Jin from League of Legends, but in a more clown theme. They're artists of death and perfecters of their craft. They do not belong to Craft
Gotcha.
Worlds or any of the weird Drukhari people. They guard something called the Black Library, which is this giant tome of never-ending knowledge deep in the heart of the Eldar webway, and also guarded by their god named Kegorok, I believe is how you pronounce his name.
Kegorok.
He is the laughing god, but it's the Eldar's laughing god? And these are the Harlequins, the Harlequin clowns. These are Eldar clowns.
Right.
Okay? So imagine the things that an Eldar these depraved individuals would find funny.
Oh.
And this is the god of that.
Oh.
It's a horror clown. These are gods of horror for us normal people. For them, they're like, oh, it's so funny. They're all dying horribly.
But that's literally just their
They're
humor.
very bizarre and difficult to describe. They've escaped the ruinous powers of Slanesh somehow, but their main thing is guarding that black library. And the Harlequins they're demon clown performers.
Right.
They're barely any models on the tabletop. They're good in melee. They're demon clowns.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure. I got a quote. It is too easy for an Eldar to embrace the obscene virtues of chaos, for Slanesh is nothing more than a manifestation of the Eldar mind in its most wild and unconstrained form. Human morality is meaningless to the Eldar, and to the dark side of the Eldar mind, all life is to be expended at a whim. Cruelty
So the Eldars basically essentially just have no morals, like, is what I'm getting.
and
They said the morals do
generosity
not
are
matter.
but the impulse of a moment. Beauty and sensuality are virtues that can be expressed in bloodshed just as easily as in song. To an unfettered Eldar mind, there is neither sanity nor madness, but merely a wave of perfect existence fulfilled by its own savage momentum.
Wow.
They're very strange. The Harlequins, Drukhari, Eldar, they are an anomaly that make humans seem completely easy to understand in comparison. They range from rekindling their civilization to horrifying murder and also clowns. They're all over the place, but honestly, they represent quite well and are rather interesting, especially with the whole Slanesh murder.
They definitely seem interesting, but
Eldar.
yeah.
Now, bugs.
Come on, they following me.
Bugs.
They following me.
The bugs.
They following me.
The Tyranids. Now,
Tyranids.
you want to talk something a lot more fun, a little more simple than all this crazy.
Just give me a
Eldar
flashback to
shenanigans?
Helldivers, bro.
Let's talk the Tyranids. They're bugs. Do they look like Zerg? Hell yeah, they look like Zerg. You want to know why they look like Zerg? Because they were actually supposed to be what Zerg were. Apparently, StarCraft was supposed to be a 40k game in the beginning, hence why they look so much like Eldar, Zerg, and the Imperium of Man. Like, kind of Space Marine-y. Those Marines, huh? They look a little bit Space Marine-y to me.
I have never heard of StarCraft.
You really fucked up on that one, Games Workshop, didn't ya? Tyranids are
Never heard
a
of it before.
giant infestation of unfathomable proportions. These are giant, extremely bio-advanced hive mind organisms.
They're hive mind too?
Basically all about absorbing as much biomass as they possibly can to evolve and mutate to be extremely potent and powerful and kill and eat anything in their path. They are probably the least evil faction in all of 40k because all they want to do is eat shit. They want to nom nom the entire galaxy.
They're literally just hungry.
And we food. Also, this Tyranid hive mind has a presence in the
how are
warp.
they the least
in fact,
evil?
Tyranids
They
in
just
their
hungry.
own right have a massive presence in the warp. They have a thing called the Shadow in the warp specifically, where when they are coming in to invade a planet, they have this weird ability to kind of cut off the warp on all the psychers on that planet. And how do you get help across the stars? Well, you need the warp because you need that for interstellar travel.
Right.
So
they
when
just
people
can't
are
help you.
unable to call for help from the Tyranids, these are just easy pickings. And an entire giant Tyranid hive fleet
I could see I could see how they could be powerful in that sense.
Massacre, absorbing all that biomass and turning them and all of their other Tyranids into even
Because I was thinking bugs are like kind of easy, like, you squash bugs in real life. They don't really have like
more
thick bones,
monsters. They come in so many
like, how are they gonna
varieties,
be more
too,
powerful
all
than everything
based
else?
on what is important. Tiny
they
little
cut off all help.
Ripper Swarms for
They cut off all
scouting
freaking help,
and having
dude.
little dudes eat people up, to the Hormagaun's turn battle fleets, and
I don't know how I
even
just
something
hit my
as
camera,
crazy
but
as the Hierophant Bio-Titan. The
Shit happens.
Tyranids come in all forms and sizes.
That's
depending on
enormous.
what they
That
require.
literally looks
They are
like the bug from
extremely
Helldivers.
good at
Did Helldivers like take
anti-biological weaponry.
inspiration?
There's no way you can plague them or blight them. They have extremely strong armor, carapaces and such. Tyranids are nigh perfect organisms and are pretty spooky when it comes down to how they handle all of their genetic material.
I can see that.
Keep feeding them, they'll keep evolving. They keep on creating new horrifying organisms to spread across the galaxy. And you want to know what the most terrifying part of the Tyranids is?
What?
We might be surrounded. There have been like around 6 or 7 Tyranid hive fleets. Behemoth, Kronos, all these different kinds of hive fleets. And they've all arrived in the galaxy from different points. Different sections of the Milky Way galaxy.
So they're like everywhere.
Have had different Tyranids come through.
That's okay. I can see that spooky.
That is horrifying.
100%.
Because as far as we know, we could just be surrounded on all sides by Tyranids. The only reason you may not hear a whole lot about Tyranids is because it's a little bit hard to have a bunch of story off of one hive mind genocidal monsters. All these giant bugs swarming in, killing and eating everybody in a
they don't really have their like
I mean,
thoughts.
as cool as there are, there's some cool characters, the Swarm Lord, Old One Eye. You can't really have a whole bunch of major character-based stories around.
I get that. I get
as awesome as they are, they're simple. They want to eat you. They want to eat you and absorb your biomass. They are simple bugs. If you want something a little more complex, talk gene stealer cults.
I can have all the pot I want. I get around faster than walking, and wherever
Are these
I need
bugs
a seat,
too, though? They
I
don't
can
really
just sit
look
on my
like
balls.
bugs.
Gene stealer cults are a special brand of Tyranid that can slowly infect themselves into different kinds of society. And by infecting them, they can rise up to where they all pray.
They genuinely do not look like bugs.
These regular humans pray and believe into their Tyranid hive mind gods. And these brood lords and I think they're called patriarchs all can turn an entire world.
So humans that believe in a god bug?
Stealers. And these are called gene stealer cults. An entire hive world of the Imperium can be turned into nothing but servants of the Tyranid masters just by infecting them and screwing with their genetic code a little bit.
They look freaky.
They also have this cool like Mad Max look, which is really neat. They are definitely one of the bigger threats to the Imperium besides Chaos. I keep saying biggest threat to the Imperium. They're up there though, because you, dingus, stepped on a bug in middle school. Asshole. There is a cancer eating at the Imperium. With each decade, it advances deeper, leaving drained, dead worlds.
Honestly, if like some bug deity ever does come to Earth, I'm cooked because I remember when I was like 8, no, maybe even younger, 7. Bro, there used to be like, I used to have like a little garden and like this place where you could sit and there would be bugs everywhere. And I used to literally put glue on them. Like, and see if they could escape. So, I was a kid, y'all. That wouldn't do something like that now, but like, yeah, I'm cooked. I'm cooked in this scenario because I have messed with bugs on purpose.
Has thought and purpose that functions on an unimaginable galactic scale, and all we can do is to try to stop the swarms of bioengineer monsters it unleashes upon us by instinct. We have given the horror a name to salvage our fears. We call it the Tyranid race. But if it is aware of us, it must know us as nothing but prey. Tyranids.
Bruh.
They're cool.
Pretty cool, huh?
But are they as cool as the Orks?
The Orks.
That means I'm super fast.
Orks.
Bro is an Orks fan.
Orks.
Understandable.
Fucking love Orks.
Orks were pretty chill in World of Warcraft.
The green monsters, the green tide, the green skins. These Orks, they are in fact a race in 40k. The Orks are as exactly what you expect them. They have archaic weapons, they're big boys, they have axes, and they have big old teeth, and they want to kill everything, and there are so many of them.
Hell yeah.
The only reason they haven't taken over the entire galaxy is they can't stop murdering each other. Orks are so cool. Orks don't have
so they don't like each other.
Orks don't have existential crisis. What matters is who's the biggest orc. You listen to that guy because he's the biggest orc.
The duality of man.
Orc knows best. You win through the power of imagination. Of all the races I have battled throughout the galaxy, the Ork is the hardest to comprehend. They wage war with machines that should not work, care little for strategic gains, and are just as likely to slaughter each other as the enemy. How does one battle an enemy that defies all logic?
Are these quotes from the game or quotes from him? Because, like, if they're quotes from him, I'm actually surprised with his writing. Like, he really describes these in a cool way, but if they're from the game, that makes much more sense. And
or you're enjoying life. You're enjoying the life you're given. Your whole life and job
they just seem like badass,
is to get up and beat each other to death because you can. The biggest orc is the man who understands everything. He is the boss. And orcs have this really weird, like, big, dumb stereotype British accent.
Really?
Which is just hilarious to me. Those are orcs.
I would not expect that.
You like to fight. Your whole purpose is to fight. You wage war because you want to
British.
wage war.
The orcs
You
are
got
British.
your boss over there, and you better listen to the boss, because if you don't listen to the boss, the
He gonna
boss
kill
will
you.
squish you.
Yeah.
Make you an example for the other orcs, and then you can't fight because orc dead.
Orc
and
dead.
orc dead can't fight because
Real.
orc dead.
Real.
Orcs. They scrap together machines out of parts that don't make any sense, and because they believe, they have the mental imagination that that machine will run, it'll run. If that machine's out of gas, you're driving that machine with your fellow orcs, and the biggest orc is behind the wheel, and you run out of gas, some orc behind you is like, oh, Zog, we're out of gas. And the big orc is like, no, we're not. I filled the fucking gas tank up earlier. And all the other orcs are like, oh yeah, you did do that. And then you turn the fucking mech back on and it works again. Does it have gas? Probably not, but it works. The power of imagination.
Ow.
They paint things red because it makes them think they goes faster. They paint things purple because it's the sneakiest color.
That's
you wanna know
pretty
why?
funny.
You ever seen a purple orc? Didn't fucking think so. Orcs are also
True.
ancient as hell. They're back in the Eldari time frame. But back then they were called Orks, and they were much larger and scarier and far more intelligent.
Damn.
Now they're just orcs, and they're big, dumb, and they smack things. But they're pretty spooky. They're not very
Spooky.
well armored, but they hit really hard. And it's called the
I would say they're
Green
cool. I don't know if
Tide
they're
because there are
spooky.
so many orcs. There
They're
are
like
about as many
cool
orcs
guys
as there
don't
are
look like
Tyranids.
explosion type dudes.
Maybe more. Who knows? But they keep on, murdering each other.
Wow,
so
they
it's
have
not too
more
bad
than
of
the
an issue.
the
Orcs
freaking
are
bugs. I said
entirely
aliens.
comic relief. Their stuff is slapped together. That makes no sense. Their vehicles don't work the way they're supposed to, but they work because they think it works, because they imagine that it works.
That's pretty
Orcs
funny.
care only about who is the biggest orc, and they will follow the biggest orc.
Yeah.
And then if they want to be the biggest orc, they'll challenge the biggest orc. And then when they go and they issue a wa is just
wa?
war in orc, they murder everybody and everything in this giant
So they just don't speak English yet. Awah.
tide of green orcs who are just excited
hilarious.
to be hitting something. They don't care that they're hitting Eldar or the Imperium or Tau or anyone in between. They're just so they get to beat shit up. That's orcs. And on the tabletop,
That's awesome.
they are a total coin flip, and they're really fun. I have never met a salty orc player. I have never met someone who plays orcs and is ever just a bad guy or that guy. Orc players have this kind of fun to them because when you play them, you are completely submitting yourself to RNG. So here's the thing. Guardsmen, Imperial Guardsmen, when they shoot, they roll a dice, and on a 4 up, they'll hit their target. They have a 50% chance. Space Marines, pretty good. They hit on a 3 or higher because they're well trained. Adeptus Custodians, they hit on 2s because they're just super well trained.
Wow.
Orcs, they hit on a 5 or higher. But if they
Oof.
roll a 6, they get to make another shot with
Okay.
anything. From the dinkiest pistol to the biggest rocket launcher. It
not-
doesn't
that's
matter.
not bad, then.
Half of their stuff will blow up.
What is the gameplay like for this game? I'm actually gonna go look up some real quick. Okay, I just watched some gameplay of this. I thought this was gonna be like a RPG type of thing, or like a, you click the button, you can click these certain keys to shoot it. I really know nothing about Warhammer. It looks really cool, actually. What the
on
heck?
a whim.
I might have to stream this on Twitch, y'all.
If you roll a 1 to heal someone, you fuck up your surgery and you just kill an orc.
Oh damn!
They're so wacky and silly. But the thing is if you roll well, you roll high, and you keep rolling high, you are going to crush people. And if you don't, you lose.
Damn.
I mean, that's what you get when you play orcs. That's what happens when you play orc. It's a coin flip, which is why
Gotcha.
you can't be a salty bitch when you play orcs, because things won't go your way.
It's just
the roll of the dice.
it is what
Play
it
the
is.
dice game.
Fate.
But if you're gonna have fun, and you want to be stupid, and you want to be silly, you're gonna play some damn orcs. But on
Gotcha.
the opposite side
Okay.
of the fun part of this, let's talk about the Necrons. The Necrons are spooky, scary skeletons and very grim,
Spooky,
dark.
scary
They have a
skeletons.
much more fleshed out lore than before. Back in the day, they
Ah.
were just undead Egyptian space terminators, and they still look that way, but they
Yeah.
don't actually have a story. So
It's a good
way
way to
back in the
describe
day,
them, really.
You had the Necron tier. Kind of see a theme here: Eldari, Eldar, Krork, Orc, Necron, Necron tier. So the Necron tier were this race of generally kind of shitty people. Not
Okay.
because they were personally shitty, because their lives were awful. They were ill-fated to a horrible existence of like radiation and a terrible planet they lived on, and everything just really
Subject
sucked.
of their
Being a Necron
environment.
tier was just really depressing. They really were looking for immortality. They were extremely reliant on the hope that they would eventually find the key to living forever and just stave off this horrible nature that they were thrust upon them, and therefore they could become the most dominant race in the galaxy.
What would staying alive
and
forever
they found this group.
do
They're called
for
the
that,
Old
though?
Ones. Imagine them kind of like the Forerunners in Halo or the Zelnaga in StarCraft, right?
Okay.
These Old Ones were these
know Halo.
strong,
about it.
pretty much omnipotent beings, and they, of course, knew the key to immortality. So the Necrons went
They
to them
do.
and said, "Please, show us your ways."
Show us.
And the Old Ones said,
Nope.
"Piss off." Not really. They were a lot more humble about it, but they did not want to share their secret of immortality.
Understandably
with the Necrons.
so.
The Necrons, of course, took this
Badly?
very well
Oh.
and waged war with them, kind of under this
Oh.
united banner. The Necron different dynasties didn't really like
Waging
each
war
other.
with somebody who's
Under this
immortal?
one
Not
man,
great
the
idea.
Silent King, he thought the best way to unite his race was to do this giant war with the Old Ones out of spite for them keeping the secret of immortality to them. This was known as
Okay.
the War in Heaven, and this is actually
The
like a
War in
multi-stage war, because during this War in Heaven, they discovered the Star Gods, a whole new race of people
Ooh.
known as the Catan, or the Catan. These Star
Catan.
Gods were also very much like Old Ones, almost omnipotent beings, and they too had the key to immortality.
look like
and
the
so
Grim
the
Reaper.
Necrons went to them and said, "Hey, can you help us fight off the Old Ones? Can you help us kill these Old Ones, you, the Catan?" And the Catan said yes.
Oh.
And in fact, we can help provide you with the immortality you so desperately seek. So the Silent King of the Necrons decided to make a pact with the Catan to allow them to accept this generous gift of immortality upon them. But this,
How does
of
immortality
course,
really
had
enter
been a
work?
horrendous trap. And the Necrons were
shit.
dragged in chains to this biotransference where their flesh was stripped from them, replaced with nothing but a metal hollow shell as their souls
No, you cannot be saying it's just a prank, bro, after that one.
were ripped from their
Golly.
bodies and fed to the Catan. And the Catan fattened up. They got chomped
They got
on the
big.
souls of the Necrons.
Oh
As
my
this was their plan
gosh.
all along, they consumed the flesh and souls of the Necron tier and turned them all
That is
into
honestly so messed up,
unwilling
though.
robotic slaves just to serve their will. And then
Ugh.
with their new-founded Necron army, they pointed their guns at the Old Ones, and the Catan continued their domination of the stars and their genocide, complete and full genocide of these Old Ones. The Old Ones did
Ooh.
their best to stave it off. They even created other races, the Eldari and the Orks, to try
Oh,
to
wow.
fight off the horrifying Necron army and the Catan above them. But there was absolutely no possible chance for them.
Nothing
and
they
the
could
Old
do.
Ones were absolutely extinguished across
Damn.
the galaxy. Their entire race
Extinct.
completely removed. Full-on 100% genocide. However,
That is
during
tough.
all this, the Catan, so just infatuated with their victory, started fighting each other for fun, for sport, and for small differences. Doesn't matter.
I don't know why
The
that's
Catan,
funny.
with these overpowered people, they're going to eventually hit each other at some
Yeah.
point. And as they began just menially fighting each other, the Eldari and the Orks actually started pushing on the Catan's borders a little bit,
Really?
giving them a little bit of a run for their money. And as this continued, this is when the Silent King, who retained his consciousness, decided to leap into action
Oh.
and start a full-scale revolt against
rebellion.
the Catan masters. And this revolt was
That actually sounds like a fire arc.
bloody as the entire Necron army was surged off to destroy these star gods. They were able to, just after suffering horrendous losses, were able to turn the tide of the war.
turn it around.
And they took these Catan and they blasted them. Because as these star gods are unkillable, they were able to break them into thousands of shards and entrap them in giant stasis vaults to now actually be slaves to the Necrons. And with the Necrons having the entirety of their old gods enslaved to them, They realized that soon their race was about to be attacked by the overcoming new races, the Eldari and the Orks. And so what they did is they retreated into giant
this is back when they were
stasis
Orks.
in order to preserve their energy and their strength for when one day they would be reawakened and they would be able to rule the galaxy that was rightfully theirs. And then some dingus Adeptus Mechanicus guy diddled with a green console, and now the Necrons are back and they see all these primitive races on their lawns and they think, get the fuck off of it. The Necrons are back, super advanced.
I was literally just gonna ask, are they back?
To reclaim the galaxy
They are.
they so rightfully believe is theirs. Now at tabletop, they're a lot like that. Tons of undead Egyptian skeleton robots that when they die, they just get right back up because they keep on reanimating. Hard to kill, tons of crazy stuff. You can use the Catan themselves as units to fight with.
That is dope. That is a dope faction.
The Necrons are one of the three major
their whole story.
events in 40k. The
Got
Horus
did dirty,
Heresy,
but came back.
The Fall of the Eldar, and the Awakening of the Necrons are all pretty substantial events.
Yeah.
And the Necrons themselves are pretty dang cool as well. Here's a good quote from a wonderful Dawn of War game. Lucky creatures, as long last you have found the tranquility of death. I was like you once, clinging to life and blind to the truth. When I uncovered the truth, I too shuddered and paled with fear. Deep in these catacombs, I was remade. Here, my brethren slumbered for eons while the living grew like weed. My Lord knew this day would come. He had plans for us all. We would purge this world once more. So come, poor victims of life. We will grant you tranquility in these crypts. Kronos will be a tomb world once more.
Damn.
Necrons are also pretty smug. Trazen the Infinite especially.
Mr. Steal Yo Girl.
Dickhead. But speaking of dickheads, last race.
Let's
talk
one.
the Tau.
The Tau Empire.
The exact formation of the Tau Empire is not entirely understood.
Damn, last
However,
one.
A long time ago, many thousands of years ago, in the 40k world that is, some Imperial navigation vessels were going around through different areas, and they saw a primitive race, blue people, smacking each other with sticks and stones. They thought, nah, dumb Xenos race, who gives a shit?
Yeah, leave 'em.
They bailed. Then this giant warp storm occurred right in that major area, unable to be
What's with the
breached.
anime legs?
Then, once that warp storm 6,000 years later
Chan?
subsided, hello, those little sticks. Well, they decided to actually have no war of any kind and all just unite together under one flag of the Tau Empire.
Nice.
And now they have gigantic starships and Gundam robots
How?
and lasers and railguns and mechs, and they are here to ruin your day for the greater good. That is generally the Tau Empire.
Greater good.
They have this kind of feeling of this homogenous group. All species can go underneath the banner of the greater good. The greater good is their idea of the fundamental increase and help of all.
Of what's
In fact,
supposed to be
they
right.
are most likely the most like the Covenant.
What they
in
think is
Halo,
right.
Where they have the
Covenant.
overarching prophets, being the ethereals, who are actually kind of dicks and like to pull at strings a little bit.
Right.
But then you have all these different races directly underneath them, and they all work together in this big group as this large, foreboding race that tries to spread their weirdly pseudo-religious influence across the galaxy.
Gotcha.
The alien is not intrinsically evil. Do not hate him. Pity him, his ignorance. Seek to understand his differences and equate him with his inadequacies. Only then will he accept his place in the greater good.
In the greater
That is
good.
generally the Tau. And if you're kind of wondering like what their mainly big shtick is, well, they're all about big robots and mechs. They have laser rifles and rail guns. They got giant mechs with tons of
So they really
missile
just got
pods
left on a
and
planet
heavy
and just
rail
freaking,
rifles and rail
or whatever
guns
they were,
and
and
burst
just built a bunch
cannons
of
and
shit.
ion accelerators and
Fair.
void shields and all this stuff. And that is generally what the Tau's all about. But you're probably thinking, but Bricky, this doesn't sound that evil. This doesn't sound very grim, dark Warhammer.
True.
And you'd be right. The Tau Empire really don't have that much of a horrifying, grimdark style like everybody else. They're much more younger, new age thing. In fact, they're probably a lot less evil and a lot even better than they are now back in the day because they liked having like that good guy faction. But a lot of us who really like the dark, depressing style of Warhammer didn't really like it that much. So, see, the Tau get a lot of hate, and a lot of that hate isn't necessarily unjustified. It's mainly from a tabletop perspective, but as you can see from all the visuals I've shown you recently, they don't really fit in the 40k universe very
He's actually so right. I'm looking at this, and you could have told me this was from a different game, and I would have believed you.
well. They lack that super dark, dramatic, kind of high gothic level the Imperium has.
Kind of like a
They don't have
cool,
the
unique
weird,
look.
kind of like
They're just like a space
grungy
tribe.
stuff that Chaos or say the Orks do, and the Necrons and the Eldar have their own specific style as well. The Tau really do look like something out of Gundam. And while it isn't necessarily a bad thing, it does definitely not fit too well.
It just makes
There's
you
that.
probably not want to play
There's
it.
also the tabletop problem. In tabletop, Tau are horrible at melee combat, but exceptionally good.
What is
at
tabletop
range
for?
combat.
Is it
So
game
they
or just
blast
collection?
Everyone
Is there
from
separate
really
like
far
thing you
away,
could
and
do?
they have a million rules to make it so that it's nearly impossible for you to get into melee combat. So it basically just forces you to bottleneck the game into one specific gameplay style, which is gun to gun. And if you're doing gun to gun, they're going to win every time because they're the Tau, and the Tau are really damn good at shooting. So it's one of those things that make the Tau generally rather hated, and a lot of different reasons for that, both from style and such. But this is actually one of the things I wanted to end this video with, is that the Tau, while they have their issues, you should not be discouraged from playing them. I'll make plenty of Tau weeaboo jokes, of course I will, but it's all generally in good fun. Anyone who legitimately doesn't want you to play a faction is an idiot, and you shouldn't be giving them the time of day. You pick what you think is cool and what you like.
Gotcha,
in
Warhammer,
man. Especially now, factions get better and they get worse. They grow and then they fall.
Can you
should
play
only
multiple
be
factions
playing
though?
what you think is cool. You like the look, you like the models. If you're talking tabletop, that is what you should be going for every time, is what you think is badass, because things change all the time. But the universe of Warhammer has so much going for it. Every faction has something interesting, every character has a story, and there's a million stories to be told. The universe is vast and exciting, and while it is dark, depressing, and horrible, that is the damn charm.
That's the charm of it.
I told you in these two videos, is that anything that you could take away is the reason why so many of us are so into this series and why we like it so much.
It's cool.
Because with so much variety, such an expansive universe, and so much that can be done,
there's so much shit in this, it looks like.
You can find yourself having a pretty great time. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it's been...
I'm gonna cut him off in his outro because we don't need to watch that. But hey guys, that was my reaction to Warhammer. I feel like in the first part I was kind of just sitting back and I was like, okay, yeah, you know, taking in info. In this second episode, it kind of more so convinced me to actually play the game, and the fact that I looked up gameplay in the middle of this, I was like, whew, this actually looks really good. A few questions I have for the comments for those of you who watched this far. Can I play part 2 of Warhammer without playing part 1, or should I go back to part 1? And also, what's the tabletop thing? Is the tabletop thing like you're just collecting, or is it like a game in itself, or can you add the things you buy on tabletop to your game? I don't know, like Smash Bros, you know how they do it, put the amiibo in. I don't know. I really don't know what it is. The way he put it was like it's like its own game type thing you can do in person. So let me know. And yeah, also, third question. Would you guys want me to play this? I'm not going to post it on YouTube because I just don't really do gaming videos anymore. People don't like them. I could post the VODs on another channel or something. But would you guys want me to stream this live over on my Twitch? Link in the description, by the way. Because honestly, it looks really fun, and the universe in itself looks really cool. So you guys let me know all those things down below. And you can just follow the Twitch in advance if you want. Up to you. And also subscribe to the channel. Like and subscribe, guys. You know, I do want to hit 100,000 subscribers someday. And I appreciate you guys for watching till the end. And make sure to check out Bricky and his stuff. And leave me more recommendations down below. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.